Hello everybody and welcome back to Dollar Tree Dinners. Today is Thursday, therefore it is Throwback Thursday, where we try a vintage recipe, usually from the Great Depression or World War II. We have completed one full cycle of my new schedule, and based on the comments, it seems that you guys really enjoy this daily theme format, which makes me very happy because part of my thought process in implementing this was how much structure it would give me throughout the week, because I have a tendency to be very scatterbrained and I really just needed a way to hone in my focus, and I thought the daily themes would help me to do that, and so far they have. I'm also optimistic that these themes will allow me to incorporate a lot more versatility, as far as I have a very vast and wide audience who are here for a variety of reasons, be it microwave meals, Dollar Tree meals, retro meals, and I've struggled to find a way to incorporate all of these different themes into a regular rotation. And hopefully now that it's been a full week, you guys can see my thought process and how it all kind of fits together. Also, I have had a couple of comments stating that the audio is more quiet. I believe that since I've moved, because it's all the same equipment, same microphone, same camera, but we're in a much more wide open space, so I think the sound just doesn't travel the way that it used to. I will do my best to project my voice a little bit more, but it's hard because I also don't want to sound harsh and I feel like when I project my voice, I have a tendency to sound kind of harsh, and I don't want to do that. I really want these videos to be relaxing. I like to have a bit of a, this might sound cliche, but I like to have a bit of a Bob Ross vibe to my channel. Very uplifting and relaxing. And I want you guys to come here when you're having a bad day and you just need a positive energy. That's what I want to be. So I will do my best to try to figure out why it's so quiet, or at least talk a little bit louder without sounding too harsh, if that makes sense. But back to the recipe. Today we're also trying a recipe from Grandma's Wartime Kitchen, World War II, and the way we cooked. Last week we made the hamburger vegetable soup, and since Easter is a few weeks away, I thought it'd be fun to try some Easter themed recipes. So I went to the back of the book, like the index section, and there was only one recipe listed under Easter, and it is Easter egg pie, or as it's called in this book, ham and egg pie. Appearances can be deceiving, because when I read ham and egg pie at first, I was like, oh, it's a quiche. It sounds like a quiche. It is very much not a quiche. The little tidbit at the beginning of this recipe says, a little bit of ham gives flavor to this pie, while the unrationed eggs extend the protein this dish provides. I have seen this called Easter egg pie, and it is certainly the perfect way to use the leftovers from Easter. It also makes a delicious main dish for brunch. We have a 1/4 cup of vegetable shortening or butter or a mixture, a 1/2 cup of coarsely chopped onion, a 1/2 cup of coarsely chopped celery, a 1/4 cup chopped green bell pepper. We have unsifted all-purpose flour, milk, salt, pepper, eggs, ham, baking powder, and cheddar cheese. I'm not going to give away too much about the recipe because I do want it to be a little bit of a mystery as we prepare it. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Step 1, preheat the oven to 375 degrees. Then it says to grease a shallow 1 quart casserole baking dish. This one is 1.5 quarts, so hopefully that works fine. I am using a little bit of melted margarine to grease my baking dish. Then it says to preheat a large skillet over medium heat. I will be using margarine for this recipe because I don't have any shortening, and butter would have been rationed during World War II, but margarine would have been a very common substitute along with shortening in a variety of recipes because that was more readily available. So it says to melt 1 tablespoon of shortening in a large skillet over medium heat. And once that is melted, it says to add the onion, celery, and bell pepper. And we're supposed to saute these until they are lightly browned. When I first picked out this recipe, I thought it was a quiche. And then I start reading the directions and I'm like, oh, that is very much not a quiche. We're actually making a white gravy. So next goes in a 1/4 cup of flour, and it says to stir until all of the vegetables are well coated. There's not a lot of fat in this, Normally, as you guys know, I would use equal parts fat to flour, but we only have 1 tablespoon of margarine in this pot right now. Just says to stir until they are evenly coated, so not very long at all. I think it's very different from making a roux. Because the next step is to stir in 2 cups of milk. And it doesn't say to space this out. Just stir in 2 cups of milk. Then it says to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and an 1/8 teaspoon of pepper. And then to bring this to a boil, stirring constantly until thickened. I'm definitely intrigued by the white gravy portion of this recipe because it's not something I would have expected, although, you know, I love white gravy in a lot of applications. Sausage gravy biscuits being the primary one. You guys know that's one of my favorite breakfasts. But I also like hamburger gravy like SOS. I know I'm not stirring constantly right now, but one of the first recipes that I tried from this book was the cream of onion soup. And that one said, this quick and easy addition to the dinner menu is a good way to increase the amount of milk in the family's diet with little notice. Although fresh milk prices were sometimes high, it was usually available and not included in the rationing programs that regulated most other protein sources. So this would have been another way to incorporate milk into recipes in order to increase their protein during a time when meat was rationed. I'm not quite sure how thick it wants the consistency to be. Like, is it like this, like a standard gravy, or is it supposed to be a lot thicker than this? I'll probably try to get it a little bit thicker. Pour half of the vegetable sauce into greased casserole. I'd say that's about half. What do you guys think? All right, let's spread that out. Arrange eggs in sauce. By eggs, they mean 3 hard-boiled eggs peeled and quartered lengthwise. One thing I've come to learn about historical recipes is that they loved hard-boiled eggs and gelatin of any kind. So my eggs are a little undercooked because on the day that I boiled them, I couldn't find the lid to my pot. So I was like, it's fine. I'll just, when I turn them down to low, I'll just let them boil uncovered. I'm sure they'll be fine. They're a little jelly-like in the center, but that's not a bad thing, so I'm fine with it. I think this is also supposed to be a round casserole dish so the eggs go in a circle. Maybe not. When I Googled 1 quart casserole, what came up was a lot of round ones. So I think they're supposed to be like a nice little pretty circle of egg slices. There's the eggs arranged in the sauce. Then we're supposed to sprinkle it with 1 cup of coarsely chopped ham. Again, this would have been your leftover ham from your Easter dinner. I have some nice diced ham from the grocery store. Then top with remaining sauce. We've got our eggs and our ham nestled in a bed of a vegetable gravy, I guess you could say. And the next step is to prepare the crust for this pie. It says to combine 1 cup of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Mix that to combine. And then we're supposed to cut in 3 tablespoons of butter or shortening. Again, I'm using margarine. Shortening would be ideal for this though. Based on what I'm reading in the instructions, this is a biscuit dough. So we're supposed to cut in the fat with a fork or a pastry knife. Add remaining 1/3 cup of milk. And stir together. You can really see how this is like a biscuity crust. It says to pat the dough on wax paper until it's the size of the casserole. Try to get it mixed together too. I have some crummy bits. I'm trying not to overwork the dough because it is a biscuit dough. I don't want it to be tough, but I need to incorporate all of those little crumbs. All right, let's put my casserole here so we can try to get it to about the same size. Needs to be a little bit bigger. It says slide onto ham and egg mixture. I don't think mine's gonna slide. Maybe? Yeah, I don't think mine's gonna slide. So I'm going to invert instead of sliding. Mine's definitely stuck to the parchment paper. There we go. That worked great. Final step is to sprinkle on 3 tablespoons of shredded cheddar cheese. And then bake this at 375 for 20 to 25 minutes until the topping is well browned. As unique as the preparation method is for this recipe, all of the ingredients are very, very basic ingredients that would have been common in pretty much every household throughout the Great Depression and World War II. A lot of the recipes in this cookbook, I believe, were publications from magazines and books or forms of literature from the wartime. That doesn't always mean that these would have been standard recipes that housewives prepared. To a degree, yes. Think about it in terms of today, like all of the recipes that exist in written form in cookbooks and magazines and things like that. Those are not always a fairly accurate representation of what's being cooked in American households. Now, why I chose to do an Easter recipe specifically is because I've always kind of wondered to myself, what would the holiday season have looked like during World War II and the Great Depression? There's not really a whole lot of information online about it. I do know one kind of fun fact, and I could be wrong about this, but it's that traditionally lamb was served at Easter time up until the Great Depression and World War II. Then it became ham, and it was because pork products were cheaper than lamb. Interestingly enough, we stuck with that tradition, almost 100 years later, because that was what was more affordable and accessible back in the day. I don't quite know what to do for Easter this year. I would like to do an Easter dinner in a bag. I spent some time doing some research this morning to try to compile some ideas. It would be something to the degree of canned ham, and I know that they make a jar of like ham glaze prepared. The problem is that the ham glaze is $5 on its own, at least at any of my local stores. The only store I can find that carries it is Safeway. I always try to make the meal in a bag fairly low cost so that people can replicate them themselves at home or donate them. And $5 for some ham glaze is quite steep. It's more expensive. The ham glaze is more expensive than the ham itself. And then I was thinking about, some scalloped potatoes, like a box of scalloped potatoes, some kind of carrots, maybe even some jarred asparagus, some pineapple slices. I think it would be a nice dinner. I'm just trying to figure out the logistics of it, and then pairing it potentially with some kind of a dessert, like dessert kit. It would not be feasible to do it from Dollar Tree. Dollar Tree doesn't carry any sort of canned ham. So I'm toying around with it. I would like it to be under $20 all inclusive for everything in the bag. So including the main dish, the scalloped potatoes, 1 or 2 like side vegetables, and a dessert. So again, if it's $5 for the glaze, that's not really realistic. So if you guys have any suggestions, I would love to hear them. I would love to put together an Easter dinner in a bag. I would have loved to put together a Christmas dinner in a bag, but as you guys know, pretty much the first 2 weeks of December, I was moving cross country from Virginia to Washington. So I didn't get to do much in the way of Christmas content, and I would like to do some Easter stuff. I just don't really quite know what I'm doing for Easter yet. Last year I did a Dollar Tree Easter dinner. I think the year before that I did a Walmart Easter dinner. Yeah, I've done two. One was from Walmart for $20. One was from Dollar Tree for $20. I'm debating revisiting the Walmart one because that one had eggs in it. And as we know, eggs are no longer the nice affordable price that they were 2 years ago. I think that the Dollar Tree Easter dinner that I made last year was one of my better ones. The bruschetta that I made in that Dollar Tree Easter dinner was fabulous. I would make that again. Pretty sure you can still buy all of the ingredients. I also really liked the Southern style green beans that I did in that. And then the only thing that I really got creative on was the potatoes. I tried to do like the potatoes with the Pioneer gravy, and those turned out tasting a lot like gravy. I mean, I shouldn't have been surprised by that, but now you can buy boxes of scalloped potatoes. I actually saw Idahoan brand scalloped potatoes at Dollar Tree the last time I was there. So that's what's in my brain right now. Within the next few weeks, a Easter dinner in a bag and a $20 Easter dinner, either from Dollar Tree or from Walmart. I also feel like I've exhausted a lot of the traditional main course options from Dollar Tree. I've made the ham roses in, I think, 3 or 4 different holiday videos, and I don't want to repeat that. As beautifully as they present, I don't want to repeat that to you guys again. So I would like to try to come up with some new ideas. That was a very long-winded ramble, but I do appreciate you guys tuning in with me every day, and I wanted to give you some insight into, you know, what's coming between now and Easter. I gotta say, y'all, I think I'm actually pleasantly impressed by this. Let's pop it out of the oven. I present to you ham and egg pie from World War II. You guys will have to let me know if you recognize this recipe or if your family has ever made anything like this before. Because this one is definitely a new one for me. Let's see what we've got going on here. Nice and saucy. Can't leave that hard-boiled egg behind. Which, it's funny that I slightly undercooked the egg because now it's baked and the egg looks perfectly cooked. So, you know, small victories, I suppose. You should probably start with some of the hard-boiled egg. Just try to get a little bit of everything. I didn't want to say this because I know some of you are not going to like the words that are about to come out of my mouth, but don't knock it till you try it. Don't knock it till you try it. It tastes like warm egg salad on a ham and cheddar biscuit. I'm just going to throw that out there. That's what it tastes like. This is why I do this. This is the exact reason that I try these recipes as they're written, and I try not to be biased. I try to be very open-minded because you never know, you know. Sometimes you will find an absolute gem of a recipe that you did not expect to be good. I cleaned my plate on that one and I have absolutely no regrets. I say this from time to time, but these women of the past really knew what they were doing. And it's really fun to rediscover recipes that may have been lost with time, especially when they're good. I'll go ahead and put the recipe up on screen here in case you want to screenshot it. I think it's a really fun one. I discovered a really long time ago that I like warm potato salad because I would make potato salad from scratch. So boiling the potatoes and then making the dressing. And when those ingredients all got mixed together while the potatoes were still warm, I would be tasting it for seasoning. And I just developed a love of warm potato salad. I like cold potato salad, but I also like to eat it when it's fresh and it's warm. So I'm very open-minded about the idea of like warm egg salad. You might not be. I hope you guys enjoyed Throwback Thursday and a little bit of chit-chatting with me about Easter and kind of brainstorming what's to come. As always, leave your suggestions in the comments down below. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and I will see you again tomorrow for Fake Out Friday.